Turns out, global supply chain relocation and PM 2.5 pollution. Your smartphone was probably made on the other side of the world. Your shirt came from somewhere you've never been. Your coffee mug traveled through ports you couldn't find on a map. And right now, someone in India or Southeast Asia is getting sick because of where your stuff was built. Not metaphorically, actually sick, actually dying. The factories that moved away from China in the last decade didn't disappear. They just relocated to poorer countries with weaker environmental rules. And a brand new study just quantified exactly how many lives that's costing. So here's the question. How much sickness are you willing to accept so your stuff is cheaper? Before we talk about what's happening now, we need to understand what everyone thought was already solved. For the last 30 years, environmental policy has followed a simple logic: move polluting industries out of developed countries and into developing ones. China became the factory of the world. Pollution went there. Rich countries got cleaner air. Problem quote-unquote solved. But around 2018, something shifted. Companies started moving manufacturing out of China itself, not back home, but sideways, to India, Vietnam, Bangladesh, Indonesia. Cheaper labor, less political friction, lower environmental enforcement, and nobody really knew what that was doing to the air or the people breathing it. A team at Nanyang Technological University in Singapore decided to actually measure it. The researchers, Karan Chen, Tao Fang, Ching Ran and Steve Yim, published their findings in Environmental International in June 2026. These aren't casual observers. They work at the Center for Climate Change and Environmental Health, which means they study exactly this nexus where global economics meets human biology. They spent years building models to track where pollution went as factories moved. And what they found is genuinely unsettling. Here's how they did it. They traced the global supply chain like you might trace a piece of mail through the postal system. Who makes what, where, and who buys it. Then they layered in atmospheric science, how pollution from factories doesn't stay local, it drifts on wind patterns. They mapped which communities ended up breathing which factories' emissions. Then they ran the numbers on human health. How much particulate matter are people exposed to, and what does that actually do to lifespan and disease rates? It's not guesswork. It's detailed, granular modeling of a genuinely complex system. Think of it like tracking a virus through a population. They were tracking pollution through supply chains and air. The headline number is brutal. 207,105 additional premature deaths in 2022, just from supply chain relocation. That's not total air pollution deaths. That's just the extra deaths caused by where we moved the factories. To put that in perspective, that's like a large city. Gone. Every year, because your company wanted to cut costs by 0.5%. But here's where it gets worse. Those deaths aren't evenly distributed. They're concentrated in the global south. India, China, Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Indonesia, Bangladesh. These countries absorbed the factories and got stuck with the pollution. Meanwhile, the United States, Western Europe and Japan, the countries that outsourced, actually got healthier. Their air improved. Their people lived longer. And the countries that actually make the stuff? Their citizens are literally dying to keep rich countries' air clean and cheap goods flowing. The research also found something almost as troubling. South-to-south trade is almost as bad as north-to-south, meaning factories moving from China to India or Vietnam aren't just a north-south exploitation story anymore. It's becoming a race to the bottom across the global south itself. Everyone's trying to undercut everyone else on labor and environmental standards, and working people in already struggling countries are paying for it with their lungs. The study is rigorous, but it has limits. It's measuring association, not proving direct causation in every individual case. And it relies on models of how pollution disperses, which are good but not perfect. Air quality is chaotic. Weather patterns shift. The models capture broad trends, not every micro moment. The study also captures 1 year, 2022. Supply chains are constantly shifting. These numbers could change. but the direction they're pointing is consistent with every other analysis of where manufacturing moved. Here's what this means for you personally. Every cheap product you buy represents a choice someone else paid for with their health. Not abstractly. That $3 t-shirt probably meant someone in Southeast Asia got 5% more fine particulate matter in their lungs that year. Over a lifetime, that adds up to real disease. Real disability, real death. You might think that's just capitalism, that's just how the world works. But this research proves it's not inevitable, it's a choice. Companies choose where to move factories. Governments choose whether to enforce environmental standards. Consumers choose what to buy. Right now, collectively, we're choosing to trade other people's lives for cheap stuff. There's a reason this study is significant in the scientific community right now. For years, the narrative was that globalization and manufacturing transfer were complicated, but net positive. Efficiency, lower prices, specialization. But this research is part of a growing body of evidence that's rewriting that story. Globalization is real. Efficiency gains are real. But so are the hidden costs. And those hidden costs aren't hidden anymore. They're quantified. 207,000 deaths. That's not mysterious. That's measurable. The bigger question this raises is one nobody's really answered. Who pays the environmental cost of global trade? Right now, it's poor people in poor countries, the people who made nothing, decided nothing, and benefited from nothing. They just breathed the air, and they're the ones getting sick. Meanwhile, the people making decisions, corporate executives, government officials, wealthy consumers in rich countries, they get cleaner air. They get cheaper products. They get to pretend the pollution happens somewhere invisible, somewhere far away, somewhere not their problem. This study changes that equation. The pollution isn't invisible anymore. It's been quantified, and that changes the moral calculus. If you know that buying something costs someone else years of their life, you can't pretend you don't know anymore. You have information. You have agency. The question is what you do with it. Supply chains are going to keep shifting. Manufacturing will keep moving. But now we know the real cost. We know it in detail. We know it in death tolls. So the last question, the one that matters, is whether knowing that will actually change anything, or whether we'll just keep scrolling past it. Turns out, scientists have been busy, and they're not done yet.